Welcome, everyone. I wanted to spend a moment to talk a little bit about Bradmark and a little bit about the opportunity that I've had to work with this team, with this product, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. So as John indicated, I came to SAP from the Sybase acquisition. I spent many years at Sybase working with a lot of very large strategic customers in a variety of capacities, from the software engineering side through the solutions sides as well. I've had the opportunity over the years to do a lot of work around monitoring and management of large-scale distributed systems. And in the course of that work, I did want to point out that there are clearly differences in many of the tools that are out there. As many of you know, SAP has some tools in the monitoring space. There are other vendors that have tools, but I think what is interesting about Bradmark and why I'm particularly pleased to be speaking to you today about this topic is that they're one of the few that really does a great job at what I think of as multi-database heterogeneous monitoring, right? The world is, as we know and love it, is really heterogeneous in nature, right? Everyone has, some Oracle, some Microsoft, perhaps some Sybase, some HANA now, and the solutions that people are building for their, businesses are often multi-component, multi-database solutions. Bradmark is one of the few that does a great job of taking a consistent monitoring approach across a variety of these technologies, both database technologies such as HANA, the Sybase, the ASE product, as well as some data movement technologies that SAP has, very mature product called the replication server, but also other databases, so Oracle as well. And so what this allows is an opportunity for your people, for your database administrators, to really be able to use a common tool irrespective of the underlying database platform. Now, the HANA side is actually quite interesting, and this is where I think the Bradmark solution has some real opportunities and some real differentiators. And that is that, first of all, HANA as a database is obviously radically different than the more traditional relational database engines like ASE, like Oracle. In that it is built from the ground up to be an in-memory database. And I won't get into the internals of that per se, but I did want to raise a few points. For those of you that are using HANA in production settings, I'm sure you've noticed that the design principle that HANA brings to the marketplace is really to consume as much resource as possible in order to run business processes, SQL queries, what have you, as fast as possible, irrespective of whether they're analytic types of applications, workloads, or if they're transactional types of workloads. And that design perspective of consuming all the resources on these servers is radically different than the previous relational engines, where it was really about efficiency and I know DBAs get awful nervous when CPU kind of pops up into the 70, 80, 90% range. But in the HANA world, that is actually fairly normal. Now, the impact to all of us, though, especially those in operations responsibilities, is that we really have to understand the workload much more granularly, perhaps, than we did using other technologies. And this is where I think the Bradmark solution really has some great things to offer. Specifically being able to really look at resource management, to look at memory consumption. And my own pet peeve about monitoring is that, looking at data instantaneously, seeing that the CPU at this instant in time, is X, and that there are so many threads running, or that, there's so much memory consumed, is interesting and important. However, what is really important is to be able to distinguish between things that are abnormal. And that requires a monitoring solution that has deep history, that can store things for long periods of time, and make comparisons to enable DBAs to say, yes, my CPU might be at 95%, but historically, when I look back at month-end processing, or quarter-end, or year-end closing, or what have you, I can see that that is in fact a normal behavior. And this is where I think the Bradmark solution really does bring many things to the table that often are left as afterthoughts. I don't want to take up a huge amount of time. I did want to convey a little bit about Bradmark, a little bit about its relationship with SAP, and prior to that with the Sybase company. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Ed to talk more about the details.